Welcome back to another episode of Building Up Your Business, the podcast. I am your host, Erica Dill with Operationally Up. We are here to build your consumer goods and e-commerce business for scalability and to maximize the profit. And we're thrilled to have you here for another episode. Remember, from bombs to order fulfillment, marketing to taxes, learn the stuff from the pros before you step in it. Today, we have another fantastic pro joining us today, and this is going to be probably one of my favorite episodes, don't tell anybody else, because it's all about talking about numbers. So today joining us is Tony Carnesi. I can't even pronounce his first name. Tony. All right.
There you go.
It's going to be a great episode, right?
We're going to have some fun.
I was going to say, I was so stressed over his last name that now I stumbled over his first name. All right, so Tony is great to be my counterpart today with a background as a CPA working in audit, reviews and compliance, corporate tax work, and financial reporting and analysis. He is now the CEO of Carnegie Consulting, where they provide strategic business solutions and fractional CFO services. With good numbers and a specific plan, they facilitate the success of your business. And that's why today we are talking about your profit margin numbers and how we can improve them, which who doesn't want better profit margins? Tony, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. That was a great introduction. Thank you, Erica. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, if I can't pronounce your name, at least I can get through your introduction well, right?
Don't sweat it. It's okay. Call me whatever you want. I'm good.
Okay. Well, we're going to stick with Tony for today. So we're going to kick this off with a bang. You bring a fantastic knowledge of CFO experience, and that CPA background is really helping your clients to talk about these financial numbers and put together reporting that is very digestible. So describe what you look for in a company's numbers, their balance sheet, and specifically their profit margins.
Okay. Well, I'm going to share with you a current client. His CPA has done his financial reports for years, and his profit and loss statement, we'll start there, is one column. He provides more than one service and more than one product. So I asked him the question, so what are your profit margins on all the different things you do? He said, give me a few minutes and I could work up some calculations for you. And my answer was, would you like to see that when you get your reports? He says, oh, my CPA doesn't do that sort of thing. I said, I know. So that's the first thing I look for, is really separation of your profit centers in your business. And then when we talk about profit margins, my next step is, how do you compare to your industry average? You know, what are your competitors doing in these profit margins areas? Do they have that available? So that's where we start. And that goes for consumer goods, right down to professional service companies. You know, with professional service companies, it's all about how much time are you spending with your clients. How do you know your margins if you don't track time effectively? Because I have both those types of clients. But the ones with moving parts and stuff going out the door, that's the fun stuff. So I'm happy to talk more about that today.
You know, I'm a sucker too for any company that's got tangible things being put in a box and shipping out the door. That's where I get my nerd on. So I can understand. That's why Tony and I are two peas in a pod. So if we talk more about kind of going down that road, does this really need to be overcomplicated? You know, you're giving a very simple answer, and he's saying, give me a little bit and I'll come back to you. You make it sound like it doesn't need to be as complicated as people kind of make it out to be.
Well, the complication should really be with me and my team, the accounting team. It should not run over to the person reading the reports. Nothing really turns me off more than when people show me all these pages and pages of reports and say, look at what I get at the end of every month. And I'm like, ew, because my goal is to give a member of a C-suite, and that goes for each member of the C-suite, a one-page report that can tell them where they should be looking and where they shouldn't be looking. And then if they have to dive deeper, then it's time to go deeper. So the complication lies within accounting to get the numbers right, to be efficient, to have the numbers delivered timely to the C-suite so they can have good discussions productive discussions about, did we hit our goals this month, what worked and what didn't, and that should be easy to see. And sometimes pictures tell 1,000 words. I worked at Citicorp for a few years, and we reported to upper management. Our reports were fairly simple because nobody wants to read a lot of numbers.
It's that, and like you said, I love that picture tells you 1,000 words. If you can look at a really quick graph and kind of get the understanding of what's going on, do you need 6 pages worth of a spreadsheet or complicated numbers? Like I don't have time to read that. I don't know about you, but nobody wants to see that.
And I also look at it as performance. If you're performing for somebody, you need to connect with them. You have to hold their attention. So if you're giving somebody a report, and you know it's going to be boring and hard to follow, they're not going to read it either.
Yeah. Do you think for some people though that like, ooh, look at the 6 pages of reports I got is like a moment of satisfaction to them to say, hey, look, my vendor's doing a really good job because I'm getting all of this. You're already smirking at my question. You're getting all of this data from them. Like, do you think that's like there's a sense of satisfaction in that?
It is, and it also depends on your audience. Like I was working with an IT company, and he was very happy to show me a stack of reports. Oh, I get these every month. And he was a part of a mastermind that I was facilitating at that point in time. So the next time I walked in the door, I wasn't his CFO. I was just really a sounding board. He said, so did you have time to read all these reports? I said, no. Do you? And then 3 months later, I discovered his bookkeeper had not paid sales tax in 3 years. So you gotta be careful what you look at, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Books and books of reports and hasn't paid sales tax.
It was an interesting discovery, and I'm like, I just remember that stack of reports. He was so excited to show me.
So I love that we're talking about the right type of reports for the right type of people. How do you go about, well, and specifically, I love that you mentioned for the specific C-suite member, because obviously what the COO wants to see is not what maybe the CIO wants to see or even the CEO wants to see. So how do you go about that process of diving in with an executive to understand what they actually want to see and how that's going to look on a report? What's your process?
Number one, I'll just get to know them a little bit and say, so the last few decisions that you've made regarding your strategy for your part of the business, what did you base them on? Who did you ask? Where did you get your information? Then I'll ask a question, what do you want to know on a regular basis that you don't know? What frustrates you that you don't know? How would you like to see it? Okay, some people like pictures, some people want graphs. You know, what do you want to see? And the goal again is that one page, because I really do feel that there's not a whole lot of attention span in the C-suite when you take them away what they do best, and helping them make decisions is really my primary objective. So I ask them, again, I go back, how do you make your decisions? What would be more helpful down the line?
Yeah, and I like that you say the last few decisions, how did you make those decisions and what did you base it off of? Because that really does give a really good insight into how their mind works and what they're looking at. The big thing that I always think about when I'm looking at data, specifically in companies, is sometimes you don't know what to ask for. And a lot of times when you're an executive and you're looking at numbers, you're looking at specific things because that's what your experience tells you. Hey, look in these specific spots. But there's always that one lurking thing that you didn't know was there until you start scratching somewhere. How do you help your executives that you're working with find those hidden pieces they didn't know existed?
I think that's the time you bring in the team members. Because if you don't ask your people what's going on and ask them, what do you want to know? Like one of my current clients, he says he feels that the floor is disengaged. I'm like, well, why don't you ask the folks on the floor to participate? And that means, okay, bring the manager in, but now maybe I should have a chat with the manager and the rest of his teams and talk about, so let me understand the process of what goes on. Do you want to know that? As you walk through a facility. Oh, okay. Do you want to know that? what was this production last month? What was the amount of overtime? What it took to get things out the door? And are those appearing on reports that you see? And then, as you ask them, they say, they'll start saying, no, I don't know that. I wish I did. I only find out once a quarter. I'd really like to know every month or every week. So it's really a discovery process, and including everybody. I like to tell most managers and leaders of a business, you'd be surprised how much your employees know, but you have to ask them.
It's so huge. And it's one of those things where, unless you know how to ask them the right question, it doesn't necessarily come up. But like you said, when you bring them in and you're like, hey, what information do you think so and so should know? Then they're like, oh, well, there's this big problem over here. And everyone's like, what? There's a what now? Okay, let's discuss this further. And that's the benefit of including, all levels in these types of
Yes.
discussions.
Yes, and that's often overlooked.
I would say almost always overlooked. Like,
I was being nice. I was being nice to the managers out there.
well, we're all here in a safe space of education and understanding. So I think we can be a little bit more like, hey guys, like let's do
Okay.
this. And that's one of my biggest soapboxes, is including team members in decision making. And so I have no problem calling that out.
Okay. No, that's understand. From your position, I understand it. It's because you see it more than I do. And
Yes, unfortunately, a lot of times going into companies, we see that a lot. And one of the things that I think you and I share a passion for is those manufacturing worlds, those putting a widget in a box and shipping it out. And in our previous conversations, we've talked a lot about there being like two main places that margin gets eaten up, and that's in materials and labor. And labor being a huge portion of that. So tell us a little bit more about what you guys do specifically when we're looking at those two main parts that are eating into margin.
I want to go a step further with those two components and talk about management. Because when it comes
Yes.
to materials, how do you purchase? We'll just touch on that briefly. What are how do you purchase? What are your inventory levels? That's important, and that's a lot of management has to go into that to understand to do that in the best way possible. When it comes to your people, time and time again, I will walk into a distribution facility. I will talk into a manufacturing facility, and oftentimes it's, oh, let me take a look at your labor. How much of this is overtime? Well, basically, everybody works Saturdays. Why? Well, they don't get their work done during the week. Why? And it's that why question that's a lot of fun. Like I once worked with a manufacturing client, and he said, oh, I pay a lot in overtime. I said, well, what if you gave your employees, and this was for the actual manufacturing processes, what if you gave your employees working the machines a budget on their jobs so they could be more time conscious and realize that they need to get it done faster? And he was like, well, how do we do that? I said, well, you decide what the budget should be together. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Come up with the budgets with, again, asking your people.
Yeah.
And now if you start putting time constraints on, then they have to answer to you, why did it take longer? It could be a valid reason, or it could be they just wanted to take their time. But now they know that you're watching. And on the flip side of this, people love overtime. That's why they work it. So now it's time to create incentives for coming in under budget.
Yep.
So now, Mr. and Mrs. Employee working, creating the stuff. What if you could have half that amount of overtime and have your entire weekend free? How would that feel? So those are some of the things that I like to bring to the table because, yeah, my people rely on overtime. Well, let's pay them for being more productive because your profits will stay the same. They might improve a little bit. They will improve, but you'll be spending less on labor overall, but you'll still have the same production.
Yeah.
So you can give them a little back if they're more productive.
We did, at a previous company, we did something very similar where we did time studies, But instead of like management sitting there with a stopwatch, we put all the team members in charge of it. And we said, you know the tasks, you know how this goes, you tell us, time yourself, here's tools to do it, here's tips, we'll sit with you if you want, but you tell us how long you think it should take. Now, of course, some people came back with numbers and we were like, are we sure that that's how long it took? But for the most part, everybody was spot on and did a fantastic job, and they felt like they had ownership in that process. And then when we went to go hold them to those metrics, like, it was very easy for us as a team to be like, we all agreed that that's how long this specific task took. And, it improved efficiencies and output tremendously. And we created a reward system where if they produced more tasks in an hour, they got paid more. So not only did productivity go up, but technically we were paying more, but we weren't losing that profit. And it was a great system.
No, that's a great point. They should own those budgets. If they own that budget, those time limits, then they can't turn around and say, well, what you said was impossible. They own it.
Yep. Well, and I think it's that mentality too. There's that pride in what they do, and there's that psychological aspect of being brought into something and being a part of that process that is really self-fulfilling and very, very ego boosting for team members. And it doesn't have to be overly complicated. And it's something that even if people don't have the capacity to understand the whole chunk of what they're doing, they can understand in a small bit and really feel like they're contributing to the team. And I think a lot of time that psychological aspect is really overlooked.
It's so important too, because now, I just want to use the word should. Would you rather somebody came along and told you what you should do, or would you rather be the one to tell yourself, I should do it? And which one will get better results?
Well, and I think even take that a step further and say what they can do, because I think people get surprised all the time when they start doing things like this of like, oh, I actually can do this. And that can become so powerful. Not to digress, but to tangent, love it. So when we're talking about material management and especially purchasing, I want to touch on inventory management and purchasing cycles and tips that you have for our listeners about things they can look out for that are pitfalls when they are looking at materials as a potential pitfall in profit margins.
Okay. Number one, my favorite question when I walk into a client is, when was the last time you counted all this stuff? And typically there's a lot of blank stares, and I understand it's really difficult to count. When I was a financial statement auditor, you had to count in order to have an audited financial statement. So my beliefs, my feelings are here also, don't expect a brand new system to fix everything for you either, because time and time again I've walked into a facility and they say, oh, once we get the new new inventory system with the scanners and everything else, everything will be fixed.
Magically fixed.
Okay, go down to the basics and say, okay, how many times does our inventory turn? And take some samples. Take some samples of your bigger products, your more higher volume products. What are the inventory turns? Let's go take a look and see what we got on the shelf. Let's compare it to what we have actually. When was the last time we bought this? What's been moving? And start looking at the numbers, because time and time again, like one client I worked with last year, he's like, oh, I buy on volume discounts, but you've got a lot of stuff here that is just sitting here. And the purchasing the person in charge of purchasing was really just wanted to get discounts. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. And it really comes down to testing your items and just looking at it and actually looking at the numbers and saying, okay. And then you decide, all right, we've really got to revamp how we order things. We've got to put a whole new thought process into this. What, and then look at the delivery times. How long does it take this stuff to come in the door? So go right down the line and just some of your biggest items and just check that whole process out. I feel that's really the best way to do it, to see if you're doing it right.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I like to bring up to my clients when we are in terms of talking about like cycle counting is inventory counting, and especially like when you're talking about like a new inventory system, it could be really overwhelming if you're like, oh, I have to put all of this information into a new system, and people start to take shortcuts. And that's the whole point of cycle counting. Cycle counting, you don't have to count every widget every single time. And as you said, start with the high turning items. What things are you moving in and out, the most? Okay, start by counting those. Or your high budget items, things that cost the most. Start counting there because that's where the bulk of your inventory is. And then work your way through little chunk by little chunk. That's why you do them in cycles so that you don't have to, yes, you need to do a full cycle count at least once a year, but you don't have to eat the whole elephant in one sitting. Like, take it a bite at a time, and little by little you'll get there.
And it's not rocket science, it's commitment to the process. Okay? Oh, we got to do it. Do a little bit, and then it becomes non-negotiable to skip it. So many times, oh, we're too busy to do a cycle count today. We're not going to do it. No, that's your job. This week you can pay a little overtime, okay? You have my permission as a CFO. But it's a commitment, and that's the hard part. We can have all the great systems in the world we want, but commitment to the process of sticking to the plan, and that's where good numbers come in. I just had to make that pitch. Don't forget the good numbers.
Don't forget those good numbers. I mean, the whole point of doing all of these things is so that you have good numbers, because to bring it back full circle, like the whole point of stressing inventory management and cycle counting is so that that those inventory numbers are correct, because when you go back to looking at your profit margins and you have how many millions of dollars sitting in inventory, well, how do you know those millions of dollars are correct if you don't have the systems and processes in place?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cultural aspect, really.
It is, and also a lot of manufacturers, just to root for my accounting teams, the accounting teams come in last as far as attention. Because, it's, oh, the accountants want this, the accountants want that. Yes, because we want to help you.
Yeah.
It's not for us, it's for you. Help us help you.
You mean you don't just sit there collecting numbers for the fun of it?
I do it late at night.
Oh, okay.
That's my favorite hobby. Yeah, sure, but yeah.
But for the most part, it's to help the client.
And it is the stereotype that so many, they didn't want to submit that. They were too busy to submit this. They were too busy to submit that. And I'm having that discussion with one of my clients now. It's like the accounting department has to step up and say, no, we need this. And we need the backing of leadership to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the other, key thing about those good numbers is having that leadership team that really understands that and commits to that being a focus of what the company is doing moving forward. You have to make that commitment and then build in that cultural change to say, no, we are now focusing on this, and this is what we're doing. And the accounting team is the team that's going to help us get there. And then they feel empowered.
Starts at the top. If the top doesn't buy in, nobody else is going to buy in.
So what other tips do you have for our listeners around really looking how to optimize profit margins, really looking at what numbers that they should be looking at, and the way, the philosophy that they go about looking at their profit margins?
I think number one, you have to have the right people looking at the right numbers. Okay, what is your marketing budget? Okay, and what is the return on that marketing budget? The people in marketing should be able to see that, and that way they could change their strategy if things aren't working, or if the customers are coming from a different place. They should be able to adapt to that. So it really depends on the reader. So each reader needs something. Operations. How did we do in our profit margins this week? What went out the door this week? What's scheduled to go out next week? There's got to be historical reports, how we did, and then forecast and reports going forward. People in the leadership team, when it comes to just budgeting and sales forecasting. One of my clients said, "Oh, we did 12 million this year. We expect to do 14 million next year." And I asked the question, "So in each profit center, what are your sales?" "Oh, I didn't really go that far." I said, "Well, how did you come up with 14 million?"
Yeah, where'd you get 14?
Okay, so let's look at historical data, how you did last year, what you expect this year, and then get into the specifics. I think I'm a big fan of specifics when it comes to numbers. And each financial statement reader needs to know specifically what they plan on doing and get that history and that forecast so they can do it. Marketing is a good example of that, and in production, they need to know what worked this month, what didn't, what's coming in. Are we ready? Because now production may have to do a shift. So it comes to, again, both historical and future forecasting.
I love that.
Let's see. Any other tips? Don't be afraid to hold your people accountable. I think that is something that I see time and time again. Oh, they had a rough month. Oh, they were this, they were that. We're all accountable. If you want your business to grow, everybody in that C-suite is accountable to look at their reports, work out what they're supposed to do, and be accountable to one another. And that's what really helps. If they're accountable to one another in the C-suite, that goes down to the people underneath them. Without that accountability, things won't grow as fast as you'd like, they won't be as efficient as you'd like, and the profits won't be what you'd like them to be.
Yeah, it's about that, really making it your culture, making it what you do in and out.
It is, and again, when it comes to management, oftentimes management takes the easy way out. And that's not the route to success.
Yeah, I can get that. Well, it has been a fantastic episode. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tony.
Thank you, Erica. I have fun talking about this stuff.
All right? We can nerd out for hours.
I can. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, I am sure. I'm sorry?
It's a pleasure being on here with you.
Good. Well, we're glad to have had you. And I'm sure that Tony and Carnegie Consulting is thrilled to help you out further. So we're going to put their contact information in this description below. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. This has been another episode of Building Up Your Business, the podcast. My name is Erica Dill with Operationally Up. We're here to help your consumer goods and e-commerce businesses grow and scale for building up a bigger, better business. Say that 5 times fast. Remember to join us every 2 weeks for a new episode of Building Up Your Business. Remember, from bombs to order fulfillment, marketing to taxes, learn the stuff from the pros before you step in it. We'll have another pro next time. And until then, have a fabulous week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Erica.